Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to jump into budgeting, which I know a lot of people are excited about. I have kind of been bantering with people that I work with, go to school with, stuff like that, just to kind of see where everyone's at. Basically, with all that inquiry, I have found out that little to none of you guys have a budget, which is a little bit shocking for me in the sense of where is this money anxiety going? So what money anxiety is basically when you're spending your money, you don't really know what you're spending it on. You're not really saving. You might think that you're saving, but there might be a debt that you should pay off before you save. Just kind of taking away the unknown of where your money is going. Watching your money grow, watching your money, paying off something that you've wanted to pay off. So what does budgeting look like, and how can I help you guys in transitioning your life into budgeting? Budgeting has made me as a person like 10 times better, just in the sense of, again, I know where my money's going. I don't have the anxiety of, overspending. There's a lot of times where, even just say for example, you go and you fill up your car 3 times a week instead of just filling it up on a Sunday, a Monday, whenever your week starts, and you then have a full tank of gas. You know where your money's going, and you can easily track your mileage, so you know what you can put in your budget and how much you can spend on gas. There was a point where I had a car and I was filling up 3 times a week, let's just say for instance $15 every time, and I would feel really anxious about it. I'm like, how much is $15 actually getting me? Mind you, I had a big commute to work at that time, but at the same time, I would spend $40 to fill my tank up every Sunday, and that anxiety would go out the window because I know for that whole week of work, I won't have to fill up before or after work. And then again, I find using your debit all the time and not knowing necessarily where that's going, or where that falls within your budget is a huge anxiety factor in people's lives. So let's cut that out. I'm not saying that you guys should save X amount. All of your goals are going to be personal to you. They are going to have to make sense in your life, and I want to be able to give you the tools to kind of set yourself up. So first big tip I would give you guys is make a budget. I'm going to put a template right here. This is my own personal template. I am tempted to post it on this YouTube channel so that you guys can start filling in your monthly income and where all your bills are. How much money do you have at the end of every month? How much of that end of the month money can you put towards savings? I get questions a lot, should I pay off my debt rather than save money? Okay, that's kind of a double-edged sword. So in that situation, of course, that is a little bit more advanced than we're gonna go in this video, but I would say to you, what are your interest rates? Pay off your highest interest loan always, no questions asked. That being said, you're always going to want to have a safety fund as well. So we're just going to get into little tidbits in this video. It's going to start very broad, and then hopefully within this phase 2, I can start to dig a little bit deeper. So again, this template will change your life. Just to mark down your monthly income. How much do you take home after all your bills are paid? You should be able to answer that right away. I can answer that every single month, and that is simply me just taking the time and budgeting what is going to work within my income. So that's another thing. Your income, it depends on what kind of life you can live. So for instance, right now, I work at Starbucks. I know that this last year, I haven't really been able to save money, and that's okay. I've put money into an emergency fund in case anything big happens, but at the same time, I don't make enough each month to save, and I'm aware of that. So you kind of have to know where you sit and your long-term goals. So for me, when I was in Edmonton, my long-term goal was to save enough to pay for university and to pay off my student loans. So I knew exactly how much a month I needed to put into an account. I knew how much I needed to have halfway through the year, and just to kind of check on yourself halfway through and see where you're at. Again, this takes away all money anxiety. It takes away all the what ifs. What if I don't have enough? What if I can't pay this off? You will know, because your personal books, in my opinion, are just as important as a company book. You should be in and out of that budget probably 4 to 5 times a month, and that's a good month. It's week to week. How much do I spend this week compared to the week after? So again, just getting familiar with where your money is going. Outline all your bill payments. I set up a budget for wine. I literally track every single dollar. And some of you might be like, you're too frugal, you're too rigid. That's fair. But for me, this is what works. And it's allowed me to be able to save and pay off long-term debt that I never thought I'd be able to pay off. Again, just having that in your budget, not lying to yourself. Like I said, I had a weekly wine budget. I knew I was going to spend money on wine, so I had to put it in the books. Every single thing that you are spending your money on, I would suggest writing it down first and foremost. So once you have your template of your budget set up, then you can kind of go in and say, well, what if I put more money on this? Or, you can make these scenarios in your head. So I would suggest taking the template, putting it in a little notebook that you can kind of carry around. Mine stays in my purse or kind of, in the living room type situation. And again, everything is monitored. It just helps your overall confidence in dealing with your money. It's made me very confident, and I know at any point where I stand. So that for me has alleviated a lot of anxiety, which I'm sure would help with a lot of people. So once you have your template made, I would suggest then going through and of course calculating what you have at the end of each month. What is the biggest savior in my opinion? I know most people have credit cards now, but you have to have an emergency fund. That might look different from, person to person. When I was living out west, I would constantly have $500 to $1,000 floating in my account. Maybe for instance, 1 month it would go to, okay, let's pick 500. Maybe it would go to 300. I knew that month to month, it had to stay at a float of 500. And that is simply just to take any situation that can happen, at least you have the funds there. I would suggest making that fund before you are saving, because this is essentially a savings account, but at the end of the day you might have to spend that account, and if that's your only savings, that might mean hardship. Again, I wouldn't always necessarily rely on a credit card. It's great if you have one, and for sure use it if you have to, but again, you should always have kind of a debit float within your account month to month. So even if that was $200, you are just going to fill it up before the next month ends. And that just, again, gives you something to fall back on in case something happens, your car, your house, anything can happen. Anything can happen nowadays. So that for sure is a definite yes. And then further to that, if you are going to have an emergency fund, I would suggest keeping it in a high yield saving account. So what that means, I'm personally with BMO, I have a separate account that I can put my savings in, and each month I'm making interest off of that savings. So most times there's a certain percent. With my personal account, I know it's very low, but for instance, if I have couple $100 in that, I will make 10 cents a month. That's a terrible example, but just to kind of give you what that means. So your money is essentially making money off of your own money. So if you are saving, I would 100% be putting it into a high yield savings account. I wouldn't even really worry about your RSP. Again, we're gonna build on these in the videos, and I think kind of once people see where they're at and where you can go. I didn't start a TFSA or an RSP savings account till I believe I was like 22, 23. So there's really no time limit. It's whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you can do that's within your budget. Of course, it's all gonna relate to how much do you make after all your expenses are covered, what is your net profit at the end of each month. So that is really important. And again, that plays into how you can save throughout the year. So again, you're going to want to make your budget. You're going to want to know exactly where your money is going. From that, you're going to want to try and maintain a surplus at the end of each month, and whatever that looks like for you. I said $500 just for kind of reference. It depends on how much you're making. That's going to really determine what you can do in that sense. And then of course, my third subject for this video is I just kind of wanted to touch on, should I save or should I pay off my debt? It's kind of a double-edged sword. If you have a loan that has a really high interest rate, you're going to want to pay off that loan before you start to save. Me personally, I have kind of mixed the two. So, I will pay a certain portion on my car, for instance, say that has really high interest rate, and I will put some into a savings account. But if you cannot do that, if you cannot do both, pay off the debt, but make sure you have an emergency fund. It's really about floating in between certain things that make sense into your life. So like I said, if you are able to save X amount a month, but you have something that's a very high interest loan, you're going to want to tackle that. I would say as well, I think a lot of people know, but the more payments you make on a loan that has high interest, that money is going towards the actual principal instead of the interest rate. So any amortized loan, such as your car or your mortgage, your payment is going to interest first, and then whatever is left from that interest is going to your principal payment. So interest goes on an annual basis. So you can take, for instance, your credit card, say it's at 12%. You can essentially take that 12%, divide it by 12, and you can see roughly what you would be spending monthly on interest. So same thing applies for your car loan. If you know that your interest rate is 10% and you're paying $100, you can see each month how much of that 10% is getting paid just towards interest. And then basically if you up your payments, that interest payment is going to be the same monthly. It's never going to get higher. So if you're putting more money on the loan, this interest payment is only taking a certain amount. That money is just going to be towards the payment. So it's better for you to do bi-weekly payments over monthly payments. And that's just a tidbit of information if that is your situation. So this video is very broad. I'm going to have multiple videos on budgeting, of course. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I want it to be broad. I want it to be general. I almost want you guys to do your homework, but I don't know if that's a little bit of a type A situation coming out. I want you to make your budget, know what you're working with, and then we can go further into budgeting concepts, because the first step is always to know where you stand and always be confident with your money. It is your money, and at the end of the day, you need to kind of look out for yourself long term as well as short term. Make the right financial decisions, and really that comes from just having knowledge about your money. So I am here for you guys, and I am here for the budgets. I live, breathe, and love budgets. I honestly sometimes wake up with my budget book next to my bed. So that's something we're going to work on in 2021. So it really just becomes part of your life. And once you are at a point where you know exactly where you stand, I think it will relieve a lot of the unknown, and that's what we want to do. So join me in my next video, which is going to be about budgeting. So I think for this, I'm going to do about 3 or 4 videos. And again, like I said, we'll get more specific as we go on. I can't wait for you guys to join me on this journey and get more familiar with your money, because the more you're familiar, the more power you have, and that's essentially what everybody wants in their life. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.